3, 2, 1. And here we go. How to create a children's book in 24 hours. Anyone can draw, anyone can write. If they have hands or feet, you can pick up a pencil. You can even draw with your mouth. Anyone that's physically capable of moving is able to create a children's book. And I think anyone can create one quite quickly, actually. You see, a children's book is a book without boundaries. You can create any sort of world that you'd like. You can do more with a children's book than you could with a normal novel that has to appeal to a certain genre. A children's book, you can get really creative. You can have any sort of length that you want. And I suppose in the self-publishing world, you can do any of that. You can be any sort of author that you'd like to be. But it's never more apparent than with a children's book, because you don't have to have an extremely long book for it to be successful. Just 30 pages is all you really need. And when you think about it, 30 pages isn't too much. Because a page could maybe have very few words and an image, an illustration, or maybe it's extremely extravagant. But I believe that if you really work hard at this, you can have a children's book ready in 24 hours. I remember back it's probably about 9 months ago, when I just spent an entire month and I just created children's books for an entire month. Created about 12 children's books. Some of them I decided to publish, others I didn't want to, so they're still in draft mode. But what I learned is that it's very possible to create an immense amount of work in a very short amount of time. You think about somebody like Vincent van Gogh, who's one of the best at production artwork, like being able to produce so many pieces of art in the limited time that he had was incredible. And it was this sheer focus. So I want you to throw out everything you think you know about writing and illustrating, especially if you're getting started here. There's probably something that design schools have taught you, but if I'm any testament to children's writing and illustrating, I can say that anyone can do it. So I think you don't need to go to design school if you feel like you have to in order to publish something. You don't need to go to design school, but it might be helpful. It might help guide you and own in on the necessary style that you're trying to go for. It might help you fine-tune your philosophy and your artistic approach. But if you can't afford art school, because it can be expensive to go to school, then never fear. Trev's here to show you how to do this job. And you can start at any age. There's brilliant authors that are starting at the preschool level. They're creating face paints and putting them together and doing all this, or hand painting, and they're putting it all together into a collage. And in a sense, that is a book. That is a book. So throw out everything you think you know, because chances are you have an incredible amount of creativity. And if you put any sort of structure around that, you might be hindering the process of creation. The next thing is use simple tools. We're often bogged down with the amount of tools at our disposal, and now you can create with a stylus pen on a digital tablet. You can draw with many different utensils, whether it's pencils, crayons, pens. There's an endless amount of tools at our disposal. That's not the problem. The problem is choosing one to get started. Use simple tools. Use the tools that you absolutely must need in order to create. And don't go any further than that. Because this is what we're looking to do. We're looking to create a simple story within 24 hours. And I'm trying to set the foundation for you here. I'm trying to set the scaffolding so that you can build this artistic piece. And we're not looking for anything brilliant, but perhaps with constraints, your most brilliant work will come out of it. So use the simple tools. If all you have is your phone, you are able to create illustrations on your phone. If all you have is a paintbrush, you are able to create illustrations on paper. And then what you can do is take a camera, rent a camera, take a picture of the paintings you've done on paper, and you can collage these images if you're not tech savvy. You throw the images together into one file and you've got yourself a book. Like, pretty simple, right? It's a unique approach, but there's no reason why you can't do that. There's no one saying that you can't do that. So don't let your constraints hold you back. If you're in a third world country and you're watching this, or in a developing country and you're watching this, and you don't have the tools, you're maybe at poverty level or below, and you can't afford the tools, look around you. You'll be pleasantly surprised that art can be created with very little. So lock in those tools that you need. For me, I created my books entirely on my laptop and a notebook. And it's not an expensive laptop. It's no fancy brand name. It's a relatively low-end laptop, and I was able to create these stories. I didn't let my tools hold me back. And I just digitally wrote and illustrated my book. Several of them. And I'd use maybe a notebook, right, to start with the words. This is what you want to maybe work with at the beginning. If you're more artistically talented, you might want to start with illustrations first. But if you're more word heavy, you might want to start with the words. I would, and I'm not saying there's any right or wrong way, but I found it helpful to write out my outline, my words on like a notebook, a rough draft, like a beginning, middle, and end. And it depends on how you flow with your creativity. But if you help with a little bit of that structure, then you can at least create a coherent story, a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. Because I see a lot of books that do not have a proper beginning, middle, and end. And I'm looking at it like there's something missing here. There's very little development in terms of the book itself. So start with the words on a notebook, or even rough sketches on a notebook. Think about, who is your main character or main object? Who says that there has to be a character? Who says there has to be a real life thing, a person, an animal? Like, does it have to be? No, it doesn't. You can have some sort of abstract element. One of my books called Stairs is just all stairs in a very uniquely laid out design, in very abstract ways. I created a book. It has no characters in it. There's no protagonist. There's no antagonist. Unless you can say that the stairs would fall into that category. Really depends if you want to deep dive into it. But the whole point is, you don't need a main character. But most stories have a main character. So if that's your objective, is to have a main character or a main object or whatever, figure that out. Because everything revolves around this character. Start adding in a supporting cast if that's what you choose to have in the book. Again, you could always just focus on this main character or object. Who is your supporting cast? The sidekicks to the story. What kind of a world is your story built around? What kinds of people are in your world? How's your world set up? Night, day, evening? Weather? Is there weather, environmental situation? Whether you have rain or snow or something? What kind of elements? As you start putting the pieces together, you'll start creating this world, this universe that never existed before. And there's something so powerful about creating a world. There's something so fulfilling about looking back and saying, I created this world out of nothing. There's nothing more powerful than having this world that you've created, this idea, this construct. Determine the main character's struggles, if there are any. A more compelling story is a story of overcoming some sort of obstacle, whether it's fear, love, relationships, anxiety. What kinds of problems do your readers face? And maybe discuss that. What problems do you face? All of my books are inspired by my life and the struggles I deal with on a daily basis. What sorts of struggles are you trying to overcome? That might help guide your development with this character. And that's really critical, is to understand what roadblocks are in your book and how they're overcome. Now, if your book is short, you might not have time to deep dive into the other characters and their struggles and what they have to overcome. So it might be helpful to just focus on your main character and figuring out how to overcome those struggles. In your outline, whether it's illustrated or text, make sure you figure out this beginning, middle, and end. Don't have this weak middle or a weak end. Provide the absolute best of yourself. Have an idea of what a beginning, middle, and end is. Unless you're completely abstract and that's your style. Maybe you can just throw that all out the door. Maybe your end starts at the beginning and your beginning starts at the end. Maybe your middle is in the beginning. I'm just giving suggestions. I'm not saying that there's any particular way of doing things. Think about next your art, your colors, your shapes. What are you using for your artwork? What are you going to do? Are you going to use a computer? Are you going to draw it by hand? Are you going to have an illustrator do the work? A lot of people have an illustrator. There's nothing wrong with that. Or illustrators have writers to create their story. It's almost like a startup relationship, like co-founders. Well, two people working together in harmony to complement their their shortcomings in order to create something meaningful and something impactful. So maybe if you only have the skill set in one or the other, figure out who you can partner up with. Of course, if we're trying to create something in 24 hours, let's maybe not get too crazy. If you can't write, well, maybe just start with one sentence. And if you can't draw, or just do stickman. Don't get too complicated with the style of it. That can come down later as you're just trying to get this initial product out to the world, to get you into a flow state where you're getting comfortable creating meaningful things. For me, all my books, they're all based on rectangles, circles, squares, triangles, very few objects, and they're all compiled into a collective whole, a gestalt of objects. But it all started with a very simple shape for my books, and then I just compiled it together into characters and shapes and objects, and that's what I recommend for you, is to put it all together. You'll want to review what you've created. Maybe you've gotten up to 30 pages. Maybe it's 10. I've created books that are just 10, 15 pages. Put it out to the world. And that's fine. Maybe that's all your story takes. It's just 10 pages. Don't worry about it. I do think, though, with 24 hours, you can create an easy 30-page story with no experience writing or illustrating, as I did that myself. And I'm no different from anyone else. I did it while recovering from eye surgery. So I dealt with obstacles, and that's what helped motivate me to put all this together. Review your book. Check for spelling errors. Check for artistic errors. Put the necessary adjustments in to make sure the book is fantastic. You can have an editor. Maybe it's your mom or your brother, sister. You can have your family check out your book. They can be your editors. You don't have to go to a publishing company to get everything checked out. Just do a very light review with your family, because I find that if you spend a lot of time editing, you never get the book out there. It just sits in editing mode. Year after year after year. Somebody takes 10 years to write a book, and they just don't create anything else, and they're wasting their life away because they could have had the book out sooner. There's no reason why you have to take 10 years to create something, unless it's like a 10,000-page manifesto or something to that extent. But we're talking about creating within 24 hours and getting it out there. So you created the children's book. You've had people review it, just close members of your family, because right now you're in an emotional state in the sense that, is this good or not? Don't let too many people interfere with your belief in the product, because you don't know yet. 1 or 2 people should not discourage you from putting out your work, from your creation. It should not affect you. Try to take some of the feedback, make some of the edits, but then get it out there. Get it out there for the world. Let them be the judge. Let them decide whether your book is right or wrong for this world. Your fans, your public, will decide whether your book is right or wrong. So do that. Let them be the feedback mechanism. Let them review your book. And I can go into the whole promotional and publishing end of the children's book at another time, but I just wanted to focus on creating the children's book. Of course, if you want to get it out there, and I can go over this more in a future session, but to get out your book to the world, there's so many different platforms for self-publishing, so you can get the book out there to the world and market it to the world. I think the intention of this podcast was just to let you know how to create something really quickly so that you've got a finished product within 24 hours. What to do with it, well, that's for future discussions. Because this focus is on unleashing your creativity. The focus here is on creating something in your head and then actually putting it down on paper or pen or digital, what have you, whichever tool. But I want you to create this and not wait any longer. The time for waiting has passed. Now is the time to create something that you've been sitting on for a while. I know we discussed children's books as the focus, but you can apply this to any aspect of your life. You can apply this to anything. You want to start running again. Well, in the next 24 hours, you can walk once. So these small little steps. The next 24 hours, you can read 10 pages of a book. In the next 24 hours, you can do a little practice on your musical instrument. Next 24 hours, you can write the first page of your essay for school. The next 24 hours, you can do that one little piece that will move you forward. But of course, if you're watching this, you're likely looking to create a children's book. So that's really the focus. And I hope these little tips have helped you in the path to creating these children's books. And I think you can make it work. I really do. And I hope that this helps you get over this so-called writer's block, which I don't fully believe it, because you can create by giving yourself a deadline, by saying in 24 hours I need to have this done. I have to have 20 plus pages done in 24 hours. And then it's like, if I don't do this, I'm delaying the success. I'm delaying the inevitable, which is a failed attempt at writing or illustrating or creating. And a deadline can help keep you in check. In 24 hours, what can you create? What have you been waiting to share with the world? And when are you going to start? Thanks for tuning in. And if you're enjoying this, please subscribe. I'm not doing any ads or anything yet, but you can definitely support me through the number of books that I've created. I'm getting into paperback versions of some of my books, some audiobooks as well. So that's another option in order to enjoy what I'm doing. But even if you just tune in and listen and continue to learn from me, I'm more than ecstatic and appreciative of that. You can leave reviews. You can share it with your friends. Maybe somebody else is trying to create a children's book and this might be helpful to them. Share it. Because maybe they'll feel inspired to create today. So, thank you. And I hope you're following along and I hope you're enjoying this. And if you're looking for more, please leave that in the comments, and I usually like improving based on your feedback. But until next time, thank you and cheers.